Hello, folks. Welcome to Holding On with Holder, where I talk to interesting people about interesting topics. My name is Steve Holder, and I am your host. My guest this evening is Scott Browne, world-renowned UFO investigator and photographer. Thank you, Scott, for being back with me tonight.
Thanks, Steve. It's an honor.
Always glad to have you. Now, for those who don't know who you are, can you give us just a little bit of background to start us off?
Sure, I'm an artist, ufologist. Some people don't like that word. It's kind of something that I've been doing for a long time. I live in central Massachusetts. I've been an artist since I was a small boy, and like I said, one of my hobbies is being interested in the UFO topic. So that's what I do.
All right. So I think you're going to tell us some things about technology and ufology tonight. I'll let you go ahead and start us off the direction you want to go in.
All right. Well, part of being involved in this community and what we do and what I do in the group, in the field group, which is on Facebook, is a lot of times we try to debunk our own material, so we're not putting false information out in front of people. We want it to be something that's authentic, that can't be explained, an anomaly, if you will. Um, and so part of what we do is we get a lot of photos and videos in and take a good look at them and see if they've been manipulated in any way. Maybe CGI added, maybe it's a small model that's being filmed or photographed. And we run it through a lot of different trials to uncover this stuff and get a lot of different eyeballs on it so people can look at it, and it's good to get a second and a third opinion. um, and so as we do this, it's important for us to be able to uh, pick out the people who are being deceptive. Maybe somebody's trying to make some money. Maybe somebody is just trying to get their name out there. They want people to see their skills and see what they can do. Uh, a lot of times today, it's just people shooting to be something to go viral. It'll go around the web, and they sit back and just laugh the whole way because thousands of people are discussing it when they know that it's something that's false or made up. And so um, using those different tools, that's what we do. And it's very important if you're going to be looking, trying to find the material on the web that's authentic, that's somebody who just stepped outside and saw something that they couldn't explain, and they whipped their camera on and started filming it. And you've got websites where they have new UFO videos every day, which is really, really hard to kind of balance out, because we do it a lot with our own cameras. And it's, if you're posting videos and you're catching things every day, it's probably questionable. They're trying to generate material for their website, and so you kind of got to have a discerning eye, and at the same time, try to use different techniques with the technology, Photoshop filters, and looking at how things are rendered in video, and things to that effect. So
Yeah.
we
Now, is there a connection between the CIA and ufology?
um there's a lot of material in the literature that shows that they've had a heavy interest for a long, long time. um Different agencies in the government have been involved at different times, so it's very confusing. You've got some investigations where It was the Air Force looking at it. And then you've got documents that have been uncovered that are from the FBI. And then you've got documents that are CIA. So it's kind of all over the place, and it's really kind of confusing sometimes. But the bottom line is that there's been a huge interest by government insiders for a long, long time.
Yeah. Now, speaking of technology, is the 5G technology that's coming on now, does that work in any way to help with uh, investigating UFOs and all that?
I'm not really sure. I couldn't say. I mean, I think it's going to bring a lot of, it's going to make the internet run, much smoother. It's higher speed. Um, you know, uh, I guess, I mean, when it comes down to video, but it really all comes down to the fact that it depends on what kind of video is being used. Are you shooting it on a low resolution phone camera, or do you have a high resolution, handheld? Um, so it really all comes down to that. It comes down to looking at the actual original video that was shot. A lot of times you upload stuff, there's compression problems. It doesn't upload as clear as it should. Um, so I mean, I guess that could play a part in it.
Yeah. So overall, has technology been an asset or a liability to getting to the truth?
Well, I guess in some ways it's definitely been, I mean, I look at it this way. If it was 20, 30 years ago and somebody shot a set of photographs or a video and they were over in Germany, it would be a long time before I would even see that. And I would have to be looking for it. So I would have to be looking for, something that's been published maybe in a small magazine, or, you know, that type of situation. Whereas now, if I'm friends with this person and they're out there hunting with their cameras, they shoot something that's anomalous, they can upload it and I can look at it within moments of them filming it. So the technology has really brought people together when it comes to, being interested in the subject, and, they have information to share and it's instantaneous where you can get a hold of people or send them a file or send them photographs. So technology has definitely had a huge impact on, how we connect and how we're able to observe things around the world. On the other hand, um, technology has had a detrimental effect in other areas, such as, the faking of CGI videos. When CGI was young, and it was only being used by the movie studios and the professional people, we didn't have that much of a problem. But as it began to slowly work its way into, the average Joe in the garage with his computer, he was able to figure out that CGI software and thought to himself, I'm going to slap a UFO in this video and no one's ever going to know the difference.
Yeah.
And that began to catch on and just became worse and worse. And, you know, uh, it's the technology is getting so good that, I mean, eventually it's going to be really hard to tell, and what's being worked on now are counter softwares where, let's say, a piece of video comes out, it's controversial, it shows a UFO land on someone's front lawn. Eventually we'll be able to take that piece of video and run it through a program, and the program will detect if this piece of video has been manipulated, add to, changed in some way. So really it's just a war back and forth. You know, they come up with the technology to fool people, and they come up with the technology to try to counter that.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a back and forth thing, you know.
It's kind of like computer hackers and security experts and
Right, right. And
outdo
then,
each other.
right. And you know, once they fix one thing, then they're able to figure out another way to get in there, or figure out how to do something else. And you know, you've got constant a couple years ago, I had used my debit card at a small store here in town. Um, and within a couple of days, I saw that there was a couple $1,000 gone out of my bank account. And so we reported it, shut the card down. They were able to track it, but only so far. So it was somebody overseas had somehow hacked into the system in this small store,
Yeah.
and were stealing people's information. And, you know, it's becoming easier and easier. They really have to come up with some kind of solid guidelines that are going to protect people. And you know, you hear about these companies, you know, that you know, offer these services where they'll keep your information safe, and they'll give you warnings when things are going to happen. Well, I look at it this way: if someone can hack into something like a government computer, which is supposed to be the most, you know, strongest computer there is, the most, you know, defended computers. I mean, they can break into anything. If they can get in there, they can get in anywhere, you know. So I think that's really got to be shored up. They've got to come up with like some really, really hard defenses to this stuff.
Yeah. I was doing a little research on technology and ufology, and I ran across an article that mentioned the Majestic 12 documents. What is that?
So this is a set of documents, and don't quote me on it. It's a set of documents that was mailed to a certain set of researchers. Um, and I can't remember exactly who they were mailed to. But the controversy went on for years, whether these were real or, you know, they've been examined down to, you know, the spelling of the words and the wording, and you know, the different terms that are used within the MJ12 papers. And you know, really, with some people, the jury's still out. They you know, they say that they were a definite hoax, and then other researchers say they're the genuine article. So you know, I mean, I'm still on the fence. I think one of the best places to go is a website called the Black Vault. And uh there's a man who runs that site. His name is John Greenwald, and he's started out when I think he was 15 or 16 years old, um, writing in under Freedom of Information and requesting documents. And he's now been doing this for decades. And that site has thousands of documents that he has gotten directly from the government.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would definitely stick to looking at that. You know, something that a researcher received kind of anonymously is a little strange.
Yeah. And I suppose if it came from a government, it was largely redacted to death. Is that probably?
Yeah, there's a lot of documents within uh, you know, John's documents, other ones that he's uncovered, where there's large sections that are redacted.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, we can speculate all day, I guess, to what's under the big black bars going
Yeah,
across the page. But
exactly.
there's a lot of things that they don't want us to know,
Yeah.
you know, and they've been keeping it a secret for a long, long time.
Yeah. I also read that the FBI, the CIA keep close tabs on the UFO investigators. Is that true?
There's a lot of evidence that says they do. It was much harder years ago, and I think that that's why they, at some point, different points throughout the UFO history, that they sent agents out to, let's say, out to a farm where somebody photographed or took a short movie of something that they saw. Um, but times have changed to where they don't really have to do that anymore. They can just go on the internet, they can track people, they can look at what you're doing, they can look at what you're interested in. So it's probably pretty simple for them.
Yeah.
But I think that they're just as in the dark as we are. I think they probably have better evidence that they've gathered, visual, ground evidence. But I still think that I think in the old days it was specifically to try to generate information about the phenomena. But I think nowadays they don't really need to do that anymore. And
Yeah.
especially with the internet, they can get on and just, check out anybody's private info that they want.
Yeah. There is no privacy nowadays.
Right. Very, very true. So I just wanted to kind of uh, veer off into this deep fake territory.
Okay.
So the deep fakes are becoming, you know, kind of a problem. It's just beginning now. So this technology, as far as I know, was first written about back in the late 90s. They were talking about doing this face swap technology, and I think it was around 2014. There was a computer graduate up in Canada. His name was Ian Goodfellow, and he came up with a technology to swap someone's face. He actually built on the technology because they were having a hard time with it. Some of his friends were running computer programs where the computer was generating a face of someone that didn't exist from a bunch of other faces. It would take different aspects of those faces, combine them, and create a person that didn't exist, but that looked real.
Yeah.
There were challenges with this technology where sometimes the computer would generate the face and it would have missing ears, or it would have something wrong with it. So they proposed this challenge to him, to this Ian Goodfellow, and he came up with a technology to force uh, two neural networks to go against each other and compete, and they would fight each other. And this led to the deep fake technology. And just last year, a woman used it to get back at some cheerleaders that were friends with her daughter, and her daughter wasn't getting along with these girls for some reason. They were at each other, and she used the technology to take their faces and put them on pornographic images, and they were arrested. The mother was arrested, and so it's now starting to get into the hands of the public.
Yeah.
Whereas before, same thing. It started with, the people who were experimenting with it, and slowly it makes its way into people's hands. And so I think in 2017, somebody on the Reddit board, calling himself Deep Fake, which is where the name came from, began to upload celebrities their faces put into pornography. And so this became a big section on the Reddit board where people were making these videos and uploading them using celebrity faces. And so now you have uh, lately the newest one is where they take somebody who has died from past history, um, who has there is no video footage of this person, obviously, because they lived long before that. And they're now creating video footage of people like Shakespeare. Um, and he's moving around, he's blinking, moving his mouth, and they can now do it using one photograph where the computer goes in and reads it and then creates different images and angles of it, and they're able to animate it. So this technology is going to be very dangerous in the future. They've already used it in let's see, over in India they used it just recently for campaigning. So some of the politicians took it, and in India there's over 20 languages spoken there. So to get his message out to these different people with the different languages, they had to create deepfake videos speaking in these different languages, but using his image. And so it's not so much of a nefarious use of it, but it still shows you that what they can do.
Yeah.
And there was there was one created of Barack Obama just recently, which was it was put out as a known fake, so people knew it, and they created a voice track for him and scanned. I forgot if it was hundreds or thousands of photographs of him, and created this deep fake of him talking, saying things that he never said before. And it was very realistic. You can actually go to YouTube and find it and watch it, and it's very realistic.
Yeah.
So we, you know, like I was saying earlier, there is now counter software that they're coming up with to detect these deep fakes, because, you know, it could be very dangerous in the future. There could be, you know, one day you turn on your TV and there's a deep fake video on the news of Vladimir Putin saying, you know, we just fired 10 nuclear missiles at your country. And, you know, people jumping the gun, you know, and thinking that this is a real thing could be very dangerous.
Yeah.
So we've really, really got to keep an eye on this technology, and we have to figure out how to detect it no matter what,
Yeah.
because, you know, people are going to be spreading it around and they're not going to know if it's real or not. And we definitely got to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I can see it being very, very detrimental for people who want to blackmail other people.
Yes, that
would
too.
definitely be bad.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it could be used for so many different reasons, and you know, it could cause a lot of damage. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
even if it's something as small as this woman using it to get back at her daughter's friends, it still caused a lot of damage because the videos made it online, and it looks like these girls are nude and they're doing this different stuff,
Yeah.
and it's completely fake. And, you know, I mean, those girls are going to have to live with the scar of that for the rest of their life because of this woman doing this. And
Yeah.
it's pretty terrible, you know, the things that can happen.
People can do pretty much anything they want with Photoshop now. This software you get online, you can download. It does amazing stuff.
Yeah, the Photoshop really was for mostly for still images. So Photoshop is kind of like the still image deep fake,
Okay.
whereas the deep fake in videos has to be done with other software, with animating software. So, like you said, they've been, putting out, I mean, how many over the last maybe 5, 10 years have we detected how many fakes have gone online of different incidents and, different people and, just so many different things. And once the Photoshop technology got out, people began to use it for all kinds of things, and some weren't so good.
Yeah. So what kind of projects are you working on now, Scott?
This coming Thursday night, I'm going to be giving a presentation to the Las Vegas MUFON chapter about the work that I do. So I'm going to be showing them examples of, different types of things like lens flares that take on the shape of a UFO. If a bird is flying in a certain speed and motion and its body is in a certain position, it will sometimes look like a UFO. A lot of different things like that. So I'm working on that. I also do illustrations for a website that has a lot of articles dealing with this subject. It's called Jar Magazine, and it's run by a good friend of mine. And so when he receives, a group of articles that they're going to publish, he'll let me know what they're about. He'll send them to me. I read through them, and then I just create some illustrations for the website. So I've been illustrating for him for a couple years now. But yeah, I'm working on that, and I'm also trying to get my YouTube show up off the ground, which will involve a lot of different things. I want to have, interviews like this. Of course, there probably be shorter interviews because I want to try to fit in, you know, examples of, how to look at photographs, how to look at video, um, some of the um, UFO things that are going on in the news. I'd like to have a news section. Um, so all in all, I think most likely I'm going to try to do it a couple times a month and maybe have it be a half hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to work on that, trying to juggle that. So we'll see how that goes. But there'll definitely be some things where we touch on the technology, and how some are using it for nefarious purposes. So
I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, so it'll be interesting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not going to be, it won't be so much of a podcast. I want to have like occasional interviews here and there, but I really want it to be more about trying to teach people how to get out there, what to look for, maybe equipment to use, um, maybe visit some hot spots in the area and I'll take it out there live, uh, you know, um, things like that. So I got a bunch of ideas in my head and a bunch of stuff written down. So we'll see how it comes across.
Yeah. Now, do you do UFO related stuff every day, or is that just a hobby every now and then, or how much of your life does that take?
uh, I'd say on a daily basis, uh, probably at least a couple hours are dedicated to it. It could be one day where I'm just checking the news to see if there's anything in the news about it. Um, there could be a day where, um, like we'll have a discussion in one of the groups, like whether it's on Twitter or whether it's on Facebook, for example, I don't know if you're uh, familiar with the story of Travis Walton.
No.
So in 1975, Travis Walton was working in the Arizona hills, and he was logging with a crew of, I think altogether there were 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them. So they're logging up in the woods, and they're coming back from a full day of working, and they're all in a pickup truck, and they come up over this hill. They see something glowing in the woods. He is captivated by it for some reason. He jumps out of the truck, and this is all portrayed in a movie called Fire in the Sky. It became a huge film. They made a movie about it, and the whole thing is portrayed in the film, except there's a couple spots where they changed the story kind of to beef it up for Hollywood. But the original story, he jumps out, he's standing underneath this glowing object. They're all in the truck and they're yelling at him to get back in the truck. The beam comes down, hits him, blasts him, throws him off his feet. They take off in the pickup truck. So long story short, he disappears, and I think it's for 5 days he was missing. The National Guard was looking for him. Hundreds of townspeople, family members, they couldn't find him for 5 days. And when he returned, upon examination, they found that he was dehydrated. He had not ingested any liquid, no food. And so to this day, these men are all still alive, and they all still stick to this story that this really happened. Not one of them has come forward to refute it. The man who was driving the pickup truck was Travis's best friend. And he apparently 3 or 4 days ago, they're remaking the film. So they're going to remake Fire in the Sky, and they're going to put it out again. And apparently, from what I heard and looking at some of his posts, he was mad because they're remaking it, and he's either not being involved or he's not being monetarily compensated for it. I'm not really sure the exact reason, but he has backed out of it and doesn't want anything to do with Travis anymore. And so this is big, because this happened a long time ago. It's a hugely famous case. And he posted this on Facebook 3 or 4 days ago that he didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so there was a huge discussion going on in the field over the past day or so, about this and about what happened, about him saying this. Some people are speculate that he's finally beginning to crack and it really didn't happen and they all made it up. But I don't believe that. I just think that, Travis took the spotlight because it happened to him. He was the one that disappeared. He was the one that ended up coming back, was in shock. And so the spotlight was on him. The side characters were kind of just there as support. So I think maybe in some way it's a little bit of jealousy. And Travis was the only one that wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
None of the others wrote a book. So, that kind of put him in the spotlight even more. So that whole discussion's been going on. So, I'll check in on that. Usually every day it's something. Sometimes it's, maybe 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes I'll get sucked down the rabbit hole and I'll be doing it for 4 or 5 hours,
Yeah.
So it depends on what I'm doing. It depends on the discussion, you know.
Yeah. Now, didn't you tell me the last time we talked that you're working on a book also?
The book is kind of come together over time. So I would say like right now, I probably only have maybe enough for 3 chapters.
Okay.
Um, so it's kind of slow.
Yeah.
I'll go back to it. There were parts that I wrote early on, uh, maybe 3 years ago when I first began, that I've actually taken out and gotten rid of because my views on the subject have evolved over time. And so some of the stuff that I, you know, had adhered to back then, I really don't put any uh viability into anymore. My
Yeah.
theories have changed. In the early days I used to say, it was the gray aliens with the big heads and the eyes. And I mean, a lot of people say that. A lot of people say they've saw them, but for me, I don't have any evidence for that. There's never been an image captured of these so-called beings.
Yeah.
Um, so I do believe that there's an intelligence out there. I'm just not willing to say that it's some big-headed alien. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So,
You always have interesting things to share, Scott.
it is interesting because I mean, I get, especially we'll have in the summertime we'll have some barbecues here at the house, and I'll get people sitting around that will sit around the fire, and you know there's some people that you wouldn't think were interested, or you know maybe had an experience but they didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And couple of beers later, and and people are talking, and
Yeah.
sometimes some of the most amazing things have come out that way. I had never known for a long time until my father was older that as a police officer, he had actually chased objects in the cruiser, and they had made reports of them, that I have tried to go back to Connecticut and find these reports, but they're gone or they're
Yeah.
buried somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but this didn't come out till years later when I began to show an interest and I began to talk about it. And, so sometimes it takes the spark of someone else, to kind of let somebody else maybe open the door a little bit and let their experience or their story out. So
Yeah.
I always find that fascinating when all of a sudden someone says, "Hey, I remembered this one time," and you sit back and you listen and you go, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you've been holding it in all this time."
Yeah. Well, Scott, I appreciate you coming back on again and sharing some these interesting things with us.
Yeah, I love coming on, Steve. I love talking to you.
Well, maybe we'll do it again soon. When you have something interesting you want to talk about, give me a holler and let me know.
Well, I'm gonna be over the next couple weeks. I'm gonna be going down to an area here. It's a state forest, so I'll be going down there at like 2 or 3 in the morning, when it's real dark out, and I'm gonna bring my infrared cams down there. And there's been sightings in this one area for a few years now, so I'm gonna try to see what I can catch. And um, if I catch something, I'll definitely let you know.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, thanks again, Scott. Good for having you on. I'll let you go. And folks, thanks for tuning in to Holding On with Holder. Please subscribe to my channel and share this video with the million of your closest friends. And tell everybody to watch Scott Browne. He's always got some great stories to tell. Scott, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye bye.